The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long amber shadows across the overgrown trail leading to the lake. Dust curled in the air behind Rivenstone's modified hover truck as it rolled slowly over the gravel path. Every inch of this land was tattooed in his memory the way the pine trees bowed slightly in the wind. The serene hum of dragonflies above the reeds, the shimmer of the artificial lake his father had carved out with ancient terraforming equipment brought back from Mars. It had been 20 years since he'd last seen it. 20 years in the outer colonies, fighting black hole miners and scanning rogue asteroids for trace elements. He had lost count of the battles and negotiations, but he never forgot this place. And now, it was different, at the edge of the lake. Where once a solar shed and data hub stood, there were manicured lawns, plastic fences, and docked paddle boats with the logo of something called Whispering Pines, HOA. His eyes narrowed. Home's modular units with shiny facades and energy and efficient lighting circled the lake like vultures. Children splashed in the shallows and signs lined the shoreline. Private property, HOA access only. Riven's jaw tightened. He powered down the hover truck and stepped out, boots crunching softly on the grass. His long coat flared in the wind, still bearing the faded patch of the galactic terraformer's cores. He scanned the surroundings, activating his wristpad. The local grid lit up, revealing something more disturbing. His entire family property had been digitally fragmented, sliced into parcels, and assigned to residential owners without his signature, without his family's consent. Most of the data files were marked with a time stamp, just 1 year after his ship, the Obsidian Mare, had left orbit. He walked to the lake's edge, knelt down, and ran his fingers through the water. Still smooth, still alive. He whispered to it in Old Aurelian, a dormant code language his father had taught him. The surface trembled slightly. It remembered him. That night, Riven set up camp. Not just any tent, but a carbon fiber shelter with adaptive camouflage and thermal shielding. Common in deep space missions, he lit a small, contained fire pit, and from his pack, pulled out a steel canister labeled Mars Brew, Vintage 69. He toasted the air and took a long sip. The stars above blinked awake one by one, and a soft breeze stirred the tree line. He felt peace until the artificial whine of electric golf carts broke the silence. 3 of them rolled in, headlights flaring, carrying a mix of nosy residents. And a stern-looking woman with short gray hair and a badge that said HOA President. She didn't bother with greetings. "You're trespassing," she barked. "This is HOA-regulated property. You'll need to vacate immediately." Riven didn't flinch. "This is my land." "That's not what the property ledger says." "We have lawful authority?" He raised a hand. "Then call the law." "Let's get it sorted," she sneered and signaled one of the residents. Within 20 minutes, 2 sheriff's patrol cruisers arrived, their red-blue lights bouncing off the water.
Us.
An officer approached Riven, cautious but not aggressive. "Sir, we've received a report that you're camping illegally on HOA grounds." Riven tapped his wristpad. A golden seal shimmered in the air above it, the encrypted insignia of the Earthstone Land Registry. "This isn't HOA land, not legally. No, not technically. Not in any system outside their sandbox server." The officer blinked, glanced at his wrist display, and frowned. The HOA president stepped forward, but Riven added, "I suggest you cross-check Planetary Deed Archives. Search for Riven, Alaric Stone, Terraformer Grade 1. The name hit like a shockwave. The officers paused. One began typing. The other slowly backed away from the fire, because even in this age, no one forgot the rank of Terraformer Grade 1. It wasn't just legal, it was sacred. And the lake behind Riven shimmered as if awakening from a long, long sleep. The night deepened, and the stars shimmered above like sentinels watching from the void. As the officers stood uneasy near their patrol cars, their datapads lit up with streaming information from the central registry node, orbiting Earth, lines of old deeds, transfer protocols, and encrypted authorization. Codes flooded the screen, each one bearing the unmistakable seal of the Galactic Commission. Riven stood, still, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the woman who had claimed authority here. The HOA president, Cynthia Malgrave? frowned as the light from the floating display reflected off her perfectly applied eye lenses. "This has to be an error," she muttered, stepping forward. "That data must be outdated. We've had control of this area for 12 years. Our system recognizes these parcels as under Whispering Pines jurisdiction." Riven turned to her slowly. "Your system lied." Cynthia's jaw tightened, but the officers were no longer paying attention to her. One of them stepped closer to Riven, holding out his datapad. "Sir, this confirms you as the original owner of this land and lake. According to the planetary records, there was never a legal sale or reassignment. Your family's land was supposed to be sealed under long-term. It's a terraforming trust until your return or legal death declaration, which never happened." "I was never dead," Riven said. "It's just farther away than you could imagine." Cynthia didn't back down. "That doesn't change what's been built here. People live here. We've invested in this community. That gives us rights." "You invested in a lie?" Riven said coldly. He walked toward the lake, passing the hovering patrol cruiser. Officers followed slowly. He knelt again at the shore and tapped a sequence on his wrist pad. A soft beep echoed, and then a low hum vibrated through the ground. Suddenly, hidden pylons around the lake shimmered into view-old infrastructure from the original terraform system. They rose slowly, dripping water, glowing with residual energy, each etched with serial numbers, commission seals, and a blinking green light that read stasis hold, owner protected. Gasps echoed behind him as the HOA members began to realize the truth. Their entire neighborhood sat atop a sophisticated, ancient environmental shell that they never understood, never accessed, never had any right to control. Riven activated a secondary layer on his pad and uploaded a packet into the planetary grid. It pulsed into orbit and bounced through global servers before returning a confirmation. His full terraforming license had been revalidated by the Galactic Registry. It's retroactive to the date of his departure 2 decades earlier. That packet contained more than just ownership. DataWit held visual records, maintenance logs, environmental impact audits, and authorization overrides for the local AI systems embedded beneath the soil. Cynthia stumbled backward. No, ... No one told us any of this." Riven stared at her. "Because you never asked the land, you just paved it." In her panic, she pulled up her own wrist console, trying to override what she assumed were falsified systems. But every attempt was met with a red glyph and a cold response. Access denied. Not recognized by Central Command. From the other side of the lake, soft lights emerged in the shallows, autonomous drones, dragonfly-shaped, lifting from the reeds. Area and then hovered silently near Riven. One landed on his shoulder and let out a series of chimes. It remembered his biosignature, his genetic key. "They were active all this time," he said, "even when you built over them." The officer looked to Cynthia. "Ma'am, until we get a full federal review, we have to consider this property." Outside HOA jurisdiction, her eyes widened in horror. "But this, ... this is impossible. You can't just come back from space and claim everything." "I'm not claiming," Riven replied. "I'm reclaiming what was never yours to begin with." Above them, the sky glowed faintly as a satellite pinged confirmation. The land, the lake, and everything beneath it was now legally and technologically his. And the systems that had slumbered beneath the HOA's illusion of control were beginning to wake. The surface of the lake rippled unnaturally, as if something deep below had stirred for the first time in decades. A quiet hum rose from the water, low and resonant, vibrating through the soil, through the air, and into the bones of every person standing nearby. Riven didn't flinch. He walked to the edge again, dropped to one knee, and spoke softly in Old Aurelian, a language long dead outside the circles of elite terraform engineers. The moment the words left his lips, the lake responded. A brilliant pulse of blue light surged outward from the center of the water. Then, the impossible happened. An arc of liquid rose into the air and began to reshape itself. Droplets hovered, twisting into strands of glowing information. In seconds, the floating water formed a holographic projection, rippling in the air like a ghost made of mist and memory. It showed images, time-stamped and tagged. Dates, coordinates, biometric readings. Riven's own face, much younger, standing beside his father as they completed the construction of the lake's first memory cores. Another image, 2 years later, showed environmental drones deploying nanobot filaments designed to monitor atmospheric changes. And then something else. The projection shifted to more recent events. Men in HOA uniforms, contracted developers, digging. Along the shore, Cynthia Malgrave, standing beside a military-grade signal jammer. Residents unknowingly walking over sealed climate vents, while artificial roots from native mimicking trees tangled the sensors below. The lake had recorded it all. The nanobots in the water, originally programmed to monitor climate health and aid in lake restoration cycles, had evolved. When the terraforming system detected invasive construction, it activated a preservation protocol, lacking the authority to defend itself physically. It did the next best thing. It documented everything. Cynthia's voice trembled. This... This isn't real. Fabricated projections, AI hallucinations, this could all be manipulated. Riven stepped forward, eyes locked on her. It's not a projection, it's a memory. This lake is alive in the way only old tech can. Be designed not just to hold water, but to remember what it protects. The sheriff stepped back, clearly unnerved. Oh, one of his deputies whispered, "Sir, this is advanced technology. Pre-fall era. We need to alert the environmental authority." Riven didn't break eye contact with Cynthia. You built over a living system without permits, without scans, without care. You silenced beacon nodes. You've blocked atmospheric readings. You violated 10 separate planetary regulations, not to mention hijacking private infrastructure. All while calling me a trespasser. The lake's images continued to display their silent indictment. One scene in particular froze the crowd. Cynthia herself. 3 years earlier, holding an unauthorized device to reprogram a boundary drone, she had stood proudly before a small group of HOA board members, boasting about claiming useless land nobody wanted. Her words echoed through the air like a curse. The truth had surfaced. It had witnesses. A man stepped forward from the watching residents, his expression blank. "You told us this place was abandoned. You said it was worthless. That the HOA had full legal scans and the government had sold it to private contractors." Cynthia's voice cracked. "I had to keep the development running. The money. The board was lied to." The man snapped. "Oh, lied to all of us." The lake pulsed again, this time softer, gentler, as if it knew the confrontation was over and understanding had taken root. The floating memories dissolved back into mist, and the water returned to stillness. It had left behind proof records, already transmitting to orbiting review stations and legal archives. Riven stood tall, his voice calm but heavy with finality. "This place trusted me once. It remembered me when no one else did. It showed mercy even as it was buried alive. Don't just steal that and expect no consequence." The residents turned towards Cynthia, eyes no longer filled with trust. The illusion of ownership had been shattered. The lake had remembered. And now, so did everyone else. The next morning began with an unnatural stillness. The kind that settled over ancient lands when something deep beneath the surface shifted. The artificial birds embedded in the HOL's smart trees no longer chirped. The auto-irrigation systems remained silent. Lawns that had once been programmed to glisten with dew now sat dry and untouched. The land had chosen to rest, no longer entertaining the coded commands of those who had trespassed. Riven awoke before dawn. His tent, nestled under the canopy of century-old pines his father once genetically designed, shimmered faintly as it deactivated its thermal field. He stepped outside, boots pressing into the grass that now responded to his presence, subtle sensors embedded in the roots recognizing his DNA and resetting to default owner mode. Lights blinked beneath the surface of the soil, activating hidden infrastructure that had slumbered for 20 years. Across the lake, panic had begun to spread. Dozens of residents gathered outside their homes, watching as their fences disassembled themselves one panel at a time. The smart walls they'd used for privacy now folded neatly onto the ground. Their solar connections rerouted by the original control grid that no one remembered existed. Lawns peeled open like petals, revealing mesh-like underground vents that began to hum. These were the lake's breathers devices used to regulate microclimates and re-oxygenate the air after intense construction. Riven watched as they came back to life with purpose. The HOA attempted to reassert control. Cynthia. Malgrave stormed across the common path in a fury, flanked by 2 tech contractors. They were armed with override tablets and signal amplifiers, desperate to reclaim digital authority. But every command they issued was denied. The system no longer listened to them. The lake's boundary pylons activated next, rising like black monoliths from beneath the surface. They extended holographic grids in all directions, tracing a perfect outline of the original ranch perimeter. It extended far beyond the plots that had been sold, swallowed entire rows of houses, and cut through the heart of the Whispering Pines development. Residents watched as their homes fell within the glow of someone else's land. Then came the deterrence. The first tremor hit gently, like a warning. The road's smart flex polymer designed to adapt to climate and weight began to shift. Driveways curled inward, sidewalks realigned to match the old blueprints. Garages refused to open. Power grids rerouted, fusing HOA commands, and instead prioritizing legacy infrastructure protocols tied to Riven's authorization key. Cynthia's contractors tried to jack into the system manually, only to be thrown back by a kinetic pulse. Meant to repel invasive software, Riven approached her as panic set in. "You don't understand what you built over," he said, his voice calm. "This wasn't just a lake. This land was engineered with adaptive intelligence. The systems were designed to survive planetary collapse. To rebuild after war. Think you could control that with HOA bylaws and cheap real estate scams?" Cynthia's eyes were wide. "This isn't just land. It's alive. Always was," Riven said suddenly. The central HOA data hub, the nerve center for all their smart systems, let out a mechanical shriek. Sparks flew from its base as it shut down. A quiet hiss followed as the lake's systems permanently disconnected it, the residents now powerless to manage their homes or surroundings. Turned toward Riven. There was fear, yes, but also awe. Many had no idea what they'd been living on. The sheriff's department arrived again, this time escorted by 2 federal officials in sleek uniforms bearing the emblem of the Terraformer Authority. One of them saluted Riven. "Commander Stone, we received the satellite ping. The override code is valid. This land and all systems within it fall under your exclusive domain. Any encroachments will be processed under planetary reclamation law." Riven nodded once. The land had revolted quietly but decisively. No violence, no destruction, just truth, enforced by the systems buried deep in its bones. The machines had waited for their master, and now they were reshaping the world in his image again. As the morning sun climbed higher, casting long beams of gold across the reclaimed land, a strange silence fell over Whispering Pines. No birdsong, no hum of irrigation systems, no distant chatter from residents clinking coffee cups on porches. Instead, the faint mechanical whir of the soil's subterranean systems, adjusting themselves, became the only background sound, a low, rhythmic heartbeat of a once dormant land now fully awake. Riven stood near the lake's edge, the gentle waves lapping quietly as if in reverence. The air tasted cleaner, the temperature once regulated by overworked HVAC units hidden in HOA hubs, now balanced naturally as the terraforming algorithms returned to operation. The soil beneath his feet no longer responded to random commands from unauthorized devices. It recognized a single authority, and that authority was him. In the distance, 2 more autonomous drones emerged from the tree line, hovering silently before opening their wings into floating projection panels. They emitted a soft blue glow and displayed a final message for the residents and officials who had gathered once more near the former HOA Commons. Ranch Omega Site 17. Ownership verified. Terraformer Grade 1. Commander Riven, Alaric Stone. Invasion detected. Restitution in progress. Gasps and whispers rippled through the gathered crowd. Many of the residents stood with arms crossed, faces pale. It awoken in homes they thought were theirs, houses purchased with savings, adorned with personal touches, only to learn the ground beneath them had never belonged to them at all. And now, The very systems that once comforted them were reconfiguring based on programming they didn't even understand. Cynthia Malgrave, for the first time, appeared broken. Her usual steel composure had cracked into something fragile. She stood in silence, her wrist console blinking an endless stream of rejection codes. Her power was gone. The HOA board had dissolved overnight. No elections, no debates, just a hard wipe of the artificial authority.